Welcome to the candidate information session regarding the online voting platform. As most of you know, my name's Lisa Lyons, and I'm the Director of Legislative Services and the Town Clerk for the Town of Newmarket. I want to make sure everyone knows this session is being video recorded and will be posted to the candidates porthole and on the election website so that candidates who weren't able to attend today are able to access the same information, as well as any members of the public who might be interested in this information also. So for today, I'd like to introduce to you the town's election team here. We have Kieran Sani, our Deputy Clerk, Julia Winters, and we have Will Ray also. And then also joining us from CITL Canada today, we have Louis Nabergoy. He's our project manager, and Richard Cadahan, he's the general manager at CITL. So today, Richard and Louis will provide background information related to CITL. They'll provide an introduction on online voting and review the voting process and discuss CITL's unique security functions. They will also provide an online voting demonstration. In terms of questions, I would ask if you could hold them till the end of the presentation, as they may cover some of your questions as they proceed through the presentation. And we'll make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask all their questions. If we can't answer your question this afternoon, we will follow up with all the candidates in the candidates newsletter. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you. Driving here, I'm seeing many colors. Fall is coming. And I think in my neighborhood, I'm the only one that works. They have their Halloween decorations up already. So I think my wife's about to text me to go somewhere to buy something. So thank you very much. I won't take too much long, but I think it's in terms of introducing CITL, but it's important to know who we are. But where I'm excited is to actually do an online voting demonstration to you and to show you how complicated security is on the back end that the users doesn't see. But on the other hand, to show you the simplicity of it so that the user can say at the end of the election, this was easy. My mom's 85 years old now. She used online voting that her son developed, which is me. And today she's saying, I can't wait to use it again. At that time, she was nervous because she was not computer literate. She didn't have a computer. Now she has 2 laptops and 1 computer. So I'm hoping to show you what I mean by that. My fault. In a nutshell, I won't go through in detail, we're a security shop. Our DNA is security. We have the largest patent with regards to security. That's where our backbone is. And in here, the one that's probably familiar to someone here is the VC-backed. We're VC-backed by Vulcan, the last one. In fact, I was just on a call with him today. Vulcan, that's Paul Allen, who is the co-founder of Microsoft. So he's the brains, actually, of Microsoft. And in terms of security, it has to be the best, and we're backed by him. We're everywhere, but I'm proud to say that we have a few offices here in Canada. We have people in Toronto, London, Ontario, and Halifax. Halifax, I love very much because you can buy lobster in the airport and bring it back home. We're in over 40 countries. There's small implementation, millions of electors being implemented. The system you're using is the Rolls-Royce version. Period. Full stop. thanks to Lisa and team. We've conducted over 350 online voting in the Ontario municipality section. We do private sectors and unions. In fact, last week we just won a big deal with Canada Post doing online voting solution. In fact, one of the questions they had is, how is Town of Newmarket doing it? Can we take a look at their screenshots? And the reason we bragged about the Town of Newmarket is because of the simplicity of the front end. It's really a 1, 2, 3 click. And I'll show you that. And here are some of the areas that we've conducted online voting. So the important thing that we have, that none of the others have, is we have, first of all, you can use any device from anywhere in the world to cast a vote. We also have mechanism to prevent countries of entering your system to vote. But correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of the Town of Newmarket online voting, you can vote anywhere in the world. Okay. It's not simple to say vote anywhere around the world, because as you know, if you're doing online banking, do not do online banking in places like coffee shops. That's where hacking comes into place, all right? Because the encryption happens on the internet when it travels to a database, but if it gets hacked on the internet, like the Heartbleed bug and many things like that, then it gets intercepted. Well, we do it differently. We don't rely on just encrypting it on the internet. We actually encrypt your vote on the device itself. So whether it be an iPhone or a BlackBerry or a laptop or a computer, the encryption happens right at the device. So when it travels to the internet and the internet encrypts it, which is great, you get double encryption. But if there's hacking, that will happen for sure at some point, I don't know when, because the Heartbleed bug happened, the vote will not be sacrificed because there's no way encrypting an encrypted from the device. So what do we say that? We're the only ones that can actually say we do end-to-end encryption. So that's very important to say. Therefore, you can vote anywhere in the world, in any place. And that's what we're very, very proud of. And that's the patent that we have. These are all very important, but at the end of the day, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So aside from end-to-end encryption, we are heavy into security. The auditors love this because we have auditability. And what I mean by that, we have our patent called immutable logs. What are immutable logs? It's a chain of events that happens from the beginning of the election all the way to the end. How it's touched, how it's edited, how it's saved, who touched it, who was there. It's all audited and chained. So what does that mean? It means the auditors love it. In case it gets as far as being challenged to the judge loves it because the immutable log is there. In terms of recount, the immutable log is there. You're able to do that without jeopardizing the secrecy of the actual vote. With all that combined, we work with customers like Town of Newmarket to make sure the design of the front end is not only secure, but easy to use. I didn't stick around to the last remarks at our accessibility meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were all ecstatic, Lisa? They were happy with the security, but more importantly, the accessibility part on the usage of it, I think they were extremely happy.
That's correct.
Some of them will be here tonight, I believe, right? I may have even asked one of them to talk instead of me. So here's a diagram of from beginning to end. But I think I will show you. I can go back into there. This diagram. It's a 1, 2, 3 again that happens on the back end. So from a voter's point of view, there's the digital ballot box that's always protected. And when a voter votes from any device, it's encrypted. The actual votes are encrypted and sealed and certified. And at the end, a receipt is given to the actual voter to ensure that their vote's going to be tallied and counted properly. And this is the exciting part. That encrypted and signed vote and receipts, it's put in a digital box. So in a lot of elections that are digitally and online voting, it's a database administrator that really tallies the result. It's an individual, not in this case. There's not one individual that starts the election, that tallies and mixes the result. It's done by a group of people. It's done by a chosen electoral board. And this electoral board is given a crypto card. Each one of them have their own IDs and security passwords. And it's like launching a nuclear missile. All of them must insert their card, insert their secret password to start the election. Same process happens at the end. They do the same process in order to start the mixing and tallying of the results. So it's done by an electoral board. There's no coercion. There's none of that happens. And we've done this all over the world. And in fact, in certain parts of the world, these electoral board people are driven in armored trucks. Yeah. And it's a prestigious thing to do as well because, oh, I'm the electoral board. And these are and some of these, Luis has attended, right? Of which hotels he's in, and he's seeing missiles going, real missiles flying over hotels. It's okay, he got danger pay, and he was happy. Actually, he did get danger pay. So it's encrypted, and the electoral board is the one responsible to that. And there's your box. It's mixed so that it removes the name of the voter and who they voted for. And at the end, a voters list is produced and the results is produced. I think that's a good explanation. Having met with a lot of the municipalities that's done online voting, these are the 10 items that they saw was key checkpoints that's important, that's a must when you conduct an online voting solution. And we have, you can see a check mark for all of these. End-to-end encryption, immutable logs, the electoral board, all these play a big factor to make sure that you know that you have confidence on the results of the election. At the end, when there's Q&A, hopefully I can illustrate. We have products that if people are trying to hack the system, we can detect them. We have a floor of people that actually takes a look at this, isolates it, and we've done many cases where we can report it back to the authorities or not, prevent it from happening. But I'm proud to say none of our data have been compromised because of the tools that we have. So, hope it's okay with you. I went fast because I want to show you the online demo. I want to show you what the voters will see when they log into the system and vote. Is that okay? And I will need your help, Luis. So here's the design. In the login, they'll receive, and I think you will show them, or would you want to show them now? Or
Pass it around.
they will receive this by mail, and based on their address, their PIN will correspond to what they see in the screen. So what's being delivered to them is their voting PIN, as you see up top there, where they will be required to enter it. But what you'll notice in that sheet, what's required there is date of birth. We're assuming that you know your date of birth. And in the case that gets stolen or whatever, there's, you got to know those information, and that's one protection. Okay? So the date of birth is that, and again, you can see the bottom there, I confirm that this PIN has been assigned to me and I'm entitled to vote. And from there, you can log in. And there's a declaration of qualification and acknowledgement here that they must read and they must accept before it continues, or they can decline to vote. Lisa, can I put you on the spot to explain the declaration here for Town of Newmarket? May I put you on that?
Yeah, of course. So we've added the declaration because we did have some questions from members of the public around how, this is a form of unsupervised voting. How do you confirm that the person who's casting their vote online is the actual person who should hold the PIN number? So with unsupervised voting, the onus really is put on the resident who is casting their vote. So we do have this declaration online, and they need to read through and acknowledge and accept it in order to move forward to get their ballot. And by doing that, they are stating that they are the person who's entitled to vote, that they are entitled to receive a ballot and move forward. So if we do receive a complaint after the election that someone voted and they weren't supposed to, that is a fraudulent act, and it can be investigated through the police. And by having this acknowledgement, we are reminding people that they are moving forward with a legal process, and that they are acknowledging that they are allowed to move forward in that process. We also wanted this page to give a resident the same opportunity that they would have if they voted in person with paper. Some residents will go to a voting station and they will prove that they are entitled to vote, and they'll be handed a ballot, and they will want the opportunity to hand the ballot back and say, I decline to vote. So we wanted to make sure that that was still available in the electronic format. So once they have accepted the declaration, that would normally allow them to proceed and cast their votes with their ballot. But in this case, they have an option to decline their vote. And by law, we need to record those declined votes. So we will be able to report on any declined votes at the end of the election through this process also.
In a case where you have a partially handicapped person, can't see and maybe not hear whatnot, how is the verification and security in play when somebody else has to be there, whether it be a friend, a neighbor? Does that person have to verify themselves?
No, we do. Sorry. We do expect that there will be people who will require assistance, and at polling location, family members are entitled to walk behind the voting screen and assist family members or friends with voting, or an election official can assist. So they won't be required to sign a form, but they will be with the person who's entitled to vote. So there is that check and balance there with the person who's voting. Now, we do also have a process in place for those residents who require special assistance and maybe can't go to a voting center, where we have created a street team where over the 10 days of voting, any resident can call our office and book an appointment with one of our election officials who are sworn to, they've taken the oath of secrecy, and they will attend that resident's home and assist them with voting. So if they're uncomfortable asking even a family member or someone they don't want to know how they voted, they can certainly utilize one of our staff for that.
Well, I'm getting at that, a lot of questions like what I just asked, and so I appreciate your response.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so like Lisa was saying, you can clear it, you can decline. The declined vote will be counted at the end. And if you choose to agree, then you're able to move to the next stage. So you can see at the top and top corner, it's pretty simple. 1 is vote, 2 review, confirm. We are on the first phase. And in here, you see you may vote for 1 candidate. Compared to paper, they can vote, even if it says vote 1, they can X all the boxes and it's spoiled. In here, if you click on 1 and try to click on others, because it's an online voting solution, it has logic in place that lets you not do that. Okay. Also, I just want to point out that you can also choose not to vote at all in any of the fields. Okay. So in this case, we'll vote for Helen or Jackie. Next. We can maybe not vote here, just to show you that you're allowed, and vote for Carissa. Yeah, next. Vote for 1 candidate, and then continue. And from here, you see it's simple, right? From here, you can see a highlighted one, which is in the Office of Deputy Mayor and Regional Councillor. It says, you have not made any selection for this office. You know, you may vote up to 1 candidate for this office, or leave your selection blank. If this is how you wish to submit your ballot, click Submit Ballot. It's just a friendly reminder to say, did you really mean not to vote in this page? Okay. And from here, if you're happy with the vote, you click Submit.
It's a timeout.
Yeah,
Experience.
it's okay. If you submit, maybe we'll go through the process. You'll see that it's going to give you a receipt. Okay.
Real quick question, right on this screen here.
Yep.
Does it indicate which is the month and which is the day? Because that's confusing, so many people do it differently. So many organizations do month and day differently. Oh, it's right there, my mistake.
Yeah, day, month,
Sorry.
year.
Sorry,
Yeah.
eyesight's really bad.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's okay. Actually, that's a good question, and we were able to illustrate. We were able to illustrate that because, you couldn't see it. The design on every screen here is called responsive design. So it's very important for the accessibility group because they can increase it, they can decrease it. If they're using smaller laptops or phone, it responds to the actual device that you have. It doesn't truncate. So it was a good question that we were,
It was all one-on-one and I thought,
Yeah,
yeah, seen that.
Okay. So I just want you to show one more step to basically, as if you're casting a vote and, decline to vote, and now you've declined to vote. Any questions?
Once you're in the review mode and you notice that the vote is not what they wanted,
Yes.
how do they go back?
Okay, let's start. I love these questions. So let's enter in the PIN, date of birth, and log in, and just agree, next. Helen, next. Grant, next. Anybody next? and now we are here. I'm not happy with my selection. That's why we bring you here to review. I want to change my selection. Just click the change selection and you must begin your process. And then if we can kindly finish the process, Luis, and show them when we submit the ballot, what happens? You get a confirmation number. You have the option to print this, to save it on your iPhone, or to write it down. It's like, it's important. It's like when you make a reservation to the hotel and they say, yeah, you have a reservation next Friday. You just don't trust them, and you show up and they say, well, we don't have a room for you. No, here's my confirmation number. So similar concept. So as you can see, it's very straightforward. And that's what the design, with the help of Town Newmarket, I believe accomplished. Because the last thing you want is for users to say, this is too difficult to use. It's very simple.
I will ask that you speak into the microphone, because with the recordings, it won't pick up if you don't.
Hi, the dates of birth that are going to be entered and each resident will have, how did they acquire those? Staff?
Okay, I can speak to that. So the date of birth and all of that, it's important for electors or voters to make sure that they're on their voters list. So that's why we've been encouraging people to check to see if they're on the voters list, and that information is contained in that information as well on the voters list. So the date of birth, along with their name and all of that information. So if their date of birth is missing on the voter instruction letter that you have, the sample one, they'll get a warning message that basically says that we don't know what their date of birth is, so they have to contact us. So if we don't know what their date of birth is, then we won't be able to, they won't have access to the system.
So are a number of the voters already pre-populated with their date of birth?
That's right.
Did we submit that earlier? I'm just curious where that came from, or were we able to get that from
No,
another
it's
branch?
through MPAC's enumeration.
Okay,
Our
yes.
voters list is generated through MPAC.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So just to clarify, that information is provided by MPAC, and it's not part of what we generate on the voters list, though, that goes to the candidates. So that personal information isn't included on the voter instruction letters that go out. It's simply used to allow the voting credentials for each individual resident that's on the voters list. Great.
Just a quick question. On the voters list, would you say that all candidates, all residents would have full information for the list that we got?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I quite
Okay, so
understand the
let's say
question.
Let's say we have 100 residents. Do all the 100 residents, because they're on the voters list, have all the information they're supposed to have?
Not necessarily. So in the instance where we don't know what the voter's date of birth is on that list of 100, they'll get a voter instruction letter that says, we don't have your date of birth, so you need to call us so we can update our information.
Okay, and that will be sent out prior to the PIN?
They should start receiving their letters next week. Yep, and the PIN is contained in that letter.
So what's on the voters list isn't always correct either, and that's why we encourage people, even if you believe you're on the voters list, you should still go in and check the information. Sometimes their school board support isn't correct, and they need to change that. That way they make sure they're getting the correct ballot. Some people have moved, so they will get a voter instruction letter in the mail, but maybe they're voting at a different address. They might be in a different ward. So their PIN is unique to themselves. So if they call us and they have their letter with a PIN, but something isn't correct on their specific information. Maybe they need to change their school board support. When they call our office, we can make that change in the back end, and their PIN is still applicable. So when they put their PIN in and get their ballot, it will be the correct ballot.
Thank you. Quick question. Person submits it, it's off, it gets the confirmation number, and then person goes, oops. Is that the point of no return? No changes.
Yes, so on that review ballot slide that you would have seen, or page rather, there's a clear message on the top that says, once you click submit ballot, you do not get another ballot in this election. So you have to be sure that when you click submit ballot, you can't go back and change your mind. That review ballot page is your opportunity to change your mind. But once you click submit ballot, there's no opportunity to.
Just to follow up, I mean, we did all the ones about online, everything the same for phone?
Yes, so once you submit your ballot on using the phone voting system, there again is no opportunity to go back. With the phone voting system, and we can show you an instructional video, which you would have maybe seen through our YouTube page, the instructions on how to vote using the phone. After a person selects a candidate, for example, for the office of mayor, they have to then confirm their selection at that point. And then they move on to the next race, which would be the office of deputy mayor and regional councillor, and then confirm it. So it's after each race and using the phone voting system, whereas on the online one, it's at the end of the process, and then you get a chance to look at your whole ballot.
Okay.
So again, it's similar to the paper ballot. Once you've put your ballot in the ballot box, you can't get it back, and you've cast your vote. So there's that same opportunity with the paper ballot. If you make a mistake, you can always take your ballot back before it's in the box and ask for another one to make changes. So with the online system, you have the ability to make the changes, but once you've hit submit, it's in the ballot box. So if you're explaining it to residents, that's how we like them to think about it. Once you hit submit, it's actually in the box and it's at a point of no return. And I think, sorry, I'm just going to jump in and say another important point for residents is if they're going through the online system, there is a 20-minute timeout. So if they start voting and they've cast a couple, races, and they get distracted, or they have to go and attend a dinner or something, they will get timed out after 20 minutes. So that the selections they've made aren't counted. They have to go back into the system and redo it. So it's not till you've hit submit that your vote is cast. And it's the same with the telephone system. So if you're on a telephone and you've gone through 2 of the races and you have submitted, it's not actually sent through until you've done all of the races. So if you get disconnected partway through, or if you're on your cell phone and you lose your signal and you're disconnected, they will have to go back to the start and go through until they've got to the very end of the process. So that's an important message to make sure people are aware of.
I was a little late at the beginning. It just was you were talking about security and encryption. If you can just give me a little bit more information about the encryption or the VPN or whatever it is that you're doing from end to end. What was intriguing was that you said that it actually starts right at the device and not just the internet. Can you just go over that very quickly for me?
Or you could get an answer. Okay. Explain it.
I'll leave the technical question to the technical project manager.
Hi, my name is Luis. I'm the project manager, and I work like a technical lead for a long time in Cytel. So our system works in a way that before we start the election, we create a public and private key together with the electoral board. The public key is the key that is used in the browser of the voter to encrypt the vote. And the private key is the key that only the electoral board has, is split between the members of the electoral board, and at the day of the tally, they put together all these parts and regenerate the full key, so we are able to decrypt this vote. But the vote is always encrypted in the browser with the public key of the election. that has been generated the day that we meet up with the electoral board, and we call it like the key ceremony, and we generate these keys. It's a private and a public key. It's called asymmetrical keys because you need a different key for decrypt than the one that you use for encrypt.
And the encryption is 258 or 256?
256.
In the States, we can't even use 256 because they want it smaller. In Canada, they allow it. So in a nutshell, I was able to find a diagram that explains. So we have what you call a public key and a private key. The private key is split up to be given to the electoral board that they only have. And at the end of the voting process, using that private key, using CryptoCard allows it to be opened. So it's not just the public key that we use, we also use the private key.
We have another level of security that the credentials and the pins are not just a pin. The pin is a password to open a certificate that includes another private key that is the voter private key. Okay? Each voter has a different private key. And this key is used to sign the vote. So when the voter casts his vote and the vote is encrypted in his browser, it's not only encrypted. After being encrypted, it's signed by his private key. And this way we can know that that vote has been casted by a voter that was eligible to vote in that election. Okay?
So in a nutshell, you can see on the third bullet point, the votes are decrypted using the private key of the election.
So I'm assuming that these letters, they're produced based on the MPAC information that you have. And the PIN number, when you enter that, it knows you're a resident of this street, so you belong to such and such ward, and then the candidate information that's shown is populated through that PIN. It knows automatically where you reside, correct? So every person is going to get different.
Yes.
Okay. Next one is MPAC is using owner's data. So what happens in those cases where owner information is there, but the property is actually rented out? So what happened to those residents? They will not receive that information, or they'll be actually receiving it because they are living in there, but the owner is not going to get that.
So MPAC does include renters on their data. So you'll have the owner, and if there are any tenants, they are included. But that information isn't always accurate and it's not always there. So that's been part of our campaign since I think back in March, for people to check and make sure they're on the voters list. So it's very important for tenants to make sure that they are included, and we have a tool right now online that they can go in and check. The MPAC tool has come down, and it's now transferred to the municipality to manage the lists we've been provided. So we do have a tool on there. People can go in. They can still check to see if they're on the list, and if they're not on the list, there are multiple ways they can add themselves to the list at this point. For renters, and actually new areas of Newmarket, we've done a very focused outreach and enumeration. We've gone door to door in all of the new areas of Newmarket where there's new development and we know there's very new residents, and we've gone door to door to add people to the list. We also did a focus on the accessory dwelling units that we know people have to register their accessory dwelling units, so we have an idea of where those are in the community, and we did a door to door at those locations, also updating any of the renters' information and making sure that they were included.
And the URL over here? The URL information over here, is that the real one? Because I'm just wondering about the name demo over there.
No.
Okay.
This is just for demonstration purposes.
This would include the kids that are becoming of age to vote? Be on their list?
So we've had, through our outreach with the public, we have had some parents and their kids at the farmer's market stop in and say, oh, my son or daughter just turned 18, can you see if they're on the list? And some of them were on the list and some of them weren't. So, you know, if you're aware of a family that has someone in that category, just have them check and we can add them and make sure they get this information and are eligible to vote.
Thank you. And the opposite problem when kids have left home, and because I checked on ours, and there are a fair number of kids that have left home that are still on the list. What is there anything that we should do about that, or just leave it?
Yes, you can let us know where they've moved to, or you can send them their letter. Assuming if they've gone away to school, you can send them their letter, or you can let us know that they've moved out permanently, and then permanently.
Permanently.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're not coming back.
Okay. So you can just let us know that they've moved permanently. You can provide us with their updated address, or we can remove them.
Are there any other questions? We didn't really talk much about the audit process, so I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the fact that we do have extensive auditing happening of the vote system the entire time that it's up and running. We have an external auditor also working right now with CITL, conducting an audit on the system before it starts. And then while the system is running, we have internal auditors checking and also auditors at CITL that are constantly looking at the system during the entire voting period. So if you do get questions about that, Louis could probably speak more, but it's an important point. We want to make sure people are aware that that is happening.
Scrutineers.
Scrutineers. So scrutineers will have a different role this election. We do speak to it in our, I guess it's our procedures that are online. And the role will be at the voting assistance centers at this point. That's really all we can offer because it is a different type of voting. And we will allow, you know, the process that you'll be able to watch is people coming in and if they're not on the voters list, getting assigned a PIN and verifying their information and then the PIN being assigned. So that's really all we have to offer for the scrutineers with this type of election. If that's it, we will have our team here tonight. We have the open house starting at 7 p.m. And we'll have a room dedicated to this presentation and discussion around security and any concerns. We're also going to have laptops set up around the table in this room so that the public can come in and actually practice voting on that demo system so they can click through and see how easily it works. We will have an opportunity for people to make sure they're on the voters list. We're going to have a kids zone tonight where they can vote for their favorite superheroes and you know, have face painting. So we hope that lots of residents will come out, and you're welcome to come back yourselves. And if you have any further questions after you leave tonight, please don't hesitate to talk to us and just give us a call.
Is there a formal presentation tonight?
We weren't going to do this type of presentation, but we will have this presentation in the Kane rooms. Is it Mulock? Mulock. They'll be in the Mulock room. And I think we'll have, Louis and Richard will run through the presentation as we have groups of people coming in, but we'll kind of keep it going. I know in the past we've had complaints if we do a formal presentation and people can't make it till a half an hour later, they miss that information. So we will run it routinely through the evening. Great, thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.